Hello my friends and welcome back to another watercolor painting tutorial. Today we are going to paint a peaceful misty forest landscape using a very simple approach. So this painting is all about creating atmosphere. Rather than trying to paint every tree with lots of detail, we are going to build the forest slowly, starting with very soft and light shapes in the background and gradually moving toward darker, more defined trees in the foreground. The most important thing to remember throughout this painting is that we don't need to control every mark. Watercolor has a beautiful way of creating unexpected textures and soft transitions, especially when we allow the water and pigment to work together. So let's get started. So here I am starting with a clean sheet of watercolor paper. Before adding any detailed shapes, I want to establish a very soft atmosphere across the entire painting. I am keeping the first layer quite light because this will become the foundation for the mist and the distant forest. I am using a diluted muted green mixture and applying it loosely across the paper. Here you can notice that I am not trying to make the color perfectly even. Some areas are slightly darker, while others are almost disappearing into the white of the paper. That's intentional. When you are painting mist, basically those variations are very useful because they create the feeling of air and distance. I want to leave some lighter areas between the darker washes because these lighter areas will eventually become the mist moving through the forest. So don't worry if your first layer looks very loose or even a little messy, because at this stage we are not painting a finished forest. We are simply creating the atmosphere in which the forest will exist. So here you can see now I am beginning to introduce some very soft vertical shapes, soft vertical strokes basically that gives the shapes of the trees. These are going to suggest the basically distant trees. I am using a relatively soft brush and keeping the pigment fairly diluted. The important thing here is not to make these trees too dark, because these trees are farther away, should have less contrast and softer edges. If every tree has a sharp outline and the same dark value, the painting will the start to look flat. Instead, I am letting some of these shapes disappear into the background. You can see that some of the trees are barely visible. That's exactly what I want. The mist is hiding parts of the forest, and that is what gives us depth. So I think so this is the main foundation of our painting. So here I also use a spray bottle. So now I'm also using a larger brush to move some of the pigment around. This helps create those soft broken textures that you often see in a misty forest. I'm not trying to paint individual leaves here, branches here. I am just thinking more about the masses of the trees. A distant forest can often be suggested with just a few carefully placed shapes. This is one of the things I really enjoyed about watercolor. You don't always have to describe each and everything. Sometimes leaving something, leaving some shapes unfinished actually makes the viewer feel more of the atmosphere. Now here you can see I am moving to the next stage. The background is still soft. So here I am ready to introduce some slightly darker trees. Basically I am using a smaller pointed brush for this. And this is where the painting starts to become more recognizable, and the trees are coming step by step forward. And when I paint these here evergreen trees, I am not drawing every branch individually. Instead, I am using small controlled strokes that become wider as I move downward. The upper part of the tree is narrow and the branches gradually become wider toward the base. So try not to make every tree identical. Here I just put some water with the brush so it creates some drama in the painting. And some trees can be taller and some can be shorter and some can lean slightly, and so these type of variation create some drama in the painting and the atmosphere, and some can be partially hidden by the mist. That variation will make the forest feel much more natural, and it will give us a nice contrast in the painting. So also I am placing some darker trees in front of the lighter background. This difference is in value is extremely important. The lighter trees feel farther away and the darker trees immediately come forward. So even though we are working on a flat sheet of paper, we are beginning to create the illusion of depth. You can think the forest as having several layers. The first layer is very soft and distant, and the second layer has a little more definition. And with also by using the flat brush, we also lift some color. And eventually, we also have a few stronger foreground trees that become the main focus. Here I am going back into some of the trees bases with a little clean water. I am softening the lower parts of the trees. This is another important part of creating mist. We don't want every tree to sit on a hard horizontal line. And also I am allowing the pigment to spread naturally, and if a little bloom or unexpected texture appears, that's okay. In fact, those little accidents can become some of the most beautiful parts of a watercolor painting. And also the flow in the watercolor painting is the beauty. So now at this point the forest is beginning to have more structure, and but we still have a lot of light space. I'm going to start adding another layer of trees. This time I'm using slightly stronger pigment. The reason is simple. As we move forward, the viewer our trees need to become darker and more defined, but I'm still being selective. I don't want to make the entire forest dark because everything becomes dark, we lost the mist. The light areas are just as important as the darker ones. So now here I am working on small group of evergreen trees rather than placing them randomly across the page. For each group I vary the size and height. Some of the trees are tall and narrow, and others are shorter and wider, and also creating the misty factor with the help of this small tool, that is the spray bottle. And also leaving some gaps between some of them, and those gaps allow the lighter background to show, and that little bit of breathing room helps the forest feel much more natural. When you're painting trees, it's very tempting to fill every empty space, and my suggestion is try not to do that. Empty space is useful, it gives the eyes somewhere to rest. So now here I am softening certain areas again. This is where the painting really starts to develop that misty character. I want some trees to look as though they are disappearing into the fog. So instead of outlining everything, I am allowing water to soften parts of the tree. So now we are getting into the final stage somewhere. This is where I can start using much stronger pigment. I am adding a few darker trees toward the foreground. And here you can see these trees are going to be more important because they help establish the depth of the scene. I'm using the same basic tree making technique, but I'm allowing the marks to be stronger and more deliberate. This unevenness in the size of the trees create more movement in the painting. and the brush is doing most of the work here. A pointed brush gives me the ability to create a thin trunk or a small branches with just the tip, and then I can press the brush slightly more to create wider branches. You don't need to draw every branch. A few well placed marks can suggest an entire tree. Here are some small patches of the same colors of same values to create some variation. So now I am working on one of the most prominent trees in the foreground. I am making this tree darker than the trees behind it. This gives us an immediate sense of distance. The background trees are soft, and the middle trees are slightly stronger, and this foreground tree has the strongest contrast. That three-level value structure is one of the simplest ways to create depth in the landscape. So sometimes we are not planning to make all these trees and all these things in a landscape, but sometimes when you're making this landscape, these water flows guide you what to do next. So here I just leave the extra water with the flat brush. Add some darker values as our layer is already wet here, so it blends easily and creates very nice atmosphere and nice darkness in the painting. So the holding of the brush matters a lot. You can see the brush is dancing on the sheet and it creates nice branch effects. The upper part of the trees is the upper part of the tree is dry and the lower part is wet. These small values, darker values helps to balance the composition, because when you put the foregrounds layers, then you will see where to put more values, more darkness. So it helps you balance the composition. So this tool helps to create a misty effect. So now here I am adding another darker tree towards the right side. I just plan to add this right now because this helps to balance the composition. I'm not trying to make both sides identical. Instead, I am creating a natural rhythm between the tree groups. For that, some areas are dense and other areas are open and misty, and that contrast gives me and keeps the painting from becoming one big wall of green. Here you can see I just again lift up the colors. Again with the same brush I just add more values, more tones over here to darken it, to balance it to create the misty effect. Again the same thing, adding the another dark tree toward the right side, because this it helps to balance the composition and to maintain the entire atmosphere in the painting. So also a few smaller trees and darker marks in the lower portion needs to be added to balance it. These details might seem small, but they help connect the foreground to the middle ground. I am allowing some of the pigment to soften naturally. Remember one thing, this is a misty scene, so we don't want every mark to have a hard edge. Some details should be crazed and others should disappear. That mixture of sharp and soft edges is what makes the atmosphere real and believable. And these small elements, these small bursts that creates atmospheric perspective. And so now here the some of the final adjustments. At this stage I like to step back and look at the painting as a whole. Rather than immediately adding more details, I'm checking the balance between the light and the dark areas. If one area feels too heavy, I don't necessarily need to add more paint somewhere else. Sometimes the best thing to do is simply leave it alone. I am adding just a few final darker accents where I want the eye to settle. These don't need to be everywhere. A few strong accents are enough. I'm also keep some of the original light areas visible. Those lighter areas are what allow the mist to breathe. So here you can see this darkness of the trees create a contrast, because these things are in the foreground layer, and the viewer's eyes easily catch these things, and this needs to be more darker and more detailed. The whole idea of this painting was to create a forest that feels quite distant and almost hidden inside the mist. And the beautiful thing is that you don't need hundreds of details to create that feeling. You mainly need to control three things only: water, value, and edges. Keep the distant trees light and soft, and build stronger values as you move forward. And don't be afraid to let some of your shapes disappear. That's where the atmosphere comes from. I really like how the different layers have come together, and now we are at the finished painting. I think so. This is the stage to finish the painting. I hope you enjoyed painting this misty forest with me today. If you are trying this painting yourself, don't worry if your trees don't look exactly like mine. In watercolor, the little differences are part of what makes each painting your own. Experiment with the amount of water, try different greens, and most importantly, allow the paint to move. If you enjoyed this tutorial, consider subscribing to the channel for more watercolor landscapes and step-by-step painting lessons. So here you can see I already finished the painting, but sometimes you realize that some of the things needs to be settled down and needs to be added to create that effect. So here some of the patches of the green marks needs to be added to balance it and to create a dramatic view in the scene. some small elements. These are the birds that balance the painting and create atmospheric perspective and creates a distance in the painting. So thank you so much for spending some time here with me. Keep painting, keep experimenting, and I will see you in the next one. Happy painting.